Welcome to another episode of Intuition First podcast with your hosts, Heather McKay and Christine Mira. We're here to connect you to your intuition and the gifts of the universe to get more out of your life and your business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Intuition First. I am your co-host, Heather McKay.
Hi, and I'm Christine Mira. Welcome.
Welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about a topic that seems very relevant right now with everything we've been through with the pandemic, but Christine and I have both experienced it in our lives and felt like it was important to really address this topic of grief and how it can completely change you and how you can deal with it in your life. So Christine, I'll let you start us off.
Yeah,
if you want to tell your story.
Not so much my story, but and I can get into that later, but I want to talk about the topic of grief. Like somebody in our life either leaves us physically or dies. And so many people are having that experience with, close to 700,000 people gone in, the last 20 something odd months. So I've been reading a lot on Facebook for young families that have lost their spouses and they're left with really young children. And it breaks my heart because their hearts are broken and they're not knowing what to do. And they don't know what's okay and what's not okay, and questions about, benefits, Social Security benefits, and, how to take care of their kids, and their work. They still have to go back to work. And now they're one parent down. And it just seemed really pressing to me because one of my very good friends lost her brother to COVID, as he had an underlying issue and caught COVID and then just never really recovered very well and passed, just gone. I think it was a heart attack. I haven't gotten all the details yet, but I know what Roddy meant to his family, his sister, who's my friend, and his mom, and he left behind 3 young kids.
That's so sad. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I can't believe that we've lost that many people. Just losing anybody in general to anything is very, very difficult. But I can't believe that I just heard today that we've lost more in 2021 than we did in 2020. We've just surpassed that number, which just amazes me. It's crazy.
I'm thinking that I thought we had lost 500,000 people by the end of last year.
I think that's what I thought too. That's not what they reported. So, I didn't go look that up anywhere else, but that was what the news program I was watching was reporting.
So that means we've lost 400,000 people?
350, it's like 352,000 last year and 353,000. It's just barely over this year.
Okay.
Which I just had no idea. But I also heard that for every person that dies, that there's approximately 9 people who are in their circles who grieve them. And obviously some more, some less, but 9 people are grieving for this person when someone passes away. And that, when you multiply that,
6.3 million.
Yeah, when you multiply that, it's just, those numbers are just astronomical. It's a lot of sadness in the world.
Well, I think, death was one of those things that in modern history, since the Vietnam War, we as a generation had not had an experience around. Like we were sort of not immune, but protected,
right,
against, because we had people that knew how to manage a major health issue, or, we knew things that were coming on, we could ward it off.
Right.
And that's what that playbook was about. That never got used in the beginning.
Right.
So 6.3 million people are affected by the loss of someone and the level of grief. So here's the thing about grief, and here's the stuff that people don't know about when people die in your life. If you've never had someone that you love deeply die in your life, there's this idea that the person that lost their beloved is gonna come back. They're gonna be just like they were before they died. Everything's gonna be okay. All they need is some time. And the reality of that is that's hockey puck, because you don't. When you lose somebody beloved, whether that be your spouse, it'd be a child, it'd be a parent, it'd be a sibling, that person made the fabric of your soul. Like they made you up. They loved you. They filled you. They gave you life and inspiration. You gave them life. You know, like there's this a deep heart connection that that person has now vacated. And in your soul, you feel a hole, literally, that the separation of them leaving to another plane, virtually like you feel like you're a ball, like your fingers are intertwined, and that's the energy of you walking on the planet together, being loving, having love, and then they're gone and it pulls away, and so all you have left are the raw nerve endings, the energetic absence, and that's part of the aching. It's part of the part of you that has to sort of figure out how to make yourself whole again, but it's never the same, never the same.
No.
And just because someone has time, like my husband died when I was 42, and I had people who were like, you know, at year one there was a lot of tolerance, or you know, not, I don't even know if that's the right word, compassion, you know, like, oh, okay, died. And then year two, it's like, oh, what are you going to do with your life? You know, what
Right.
you know, are you going back to work? What are you going to do with the kids? Like, there's all these hard life questions. Like, there wasn't a space just to be like, wow, I'm still hurt. I'm still grieving. I'm still, and I didn't actually feel like I had a new sense of normal until it was 5 years. So, you know, that's like each season of your life in 5 years. At 5 years, I felt like I was standing upright, that I had a new sense of normal, and that I could go about the cabin and not feel like I was going to break down in tears or missing him so much that, you know, my heart just was bruised. I mean, he literally, when he died, you know, I know I don't wish that upon anyone. I now know why older people are challenged when their spouses leave, because you really do feel broken. Your heart's broken, your soul's broken. You're like, the level of pain that I felt was so deep. And the interesting thing, or what I found, was when people would come to console me, they had all their own unresolved issues around grief and death, that they would pour all their stuff onto me about their experiences of grief and death. And while some people might get like super upset, oh my gosh, you know, that person doesn't understand, why are they doing that? I just looked at it as God using me as a channel of healing for them, because I never got to speak about it and never got to process it. So it literally lived inside of them until they had a chance to talk to someone who got it.
Yeah, I I understand that as well, because and I think people don't know what to say.
Mm.
But if it is, it could be a different relationship, maybe not a spouse, but it's still a loss that if someone has experienced it, and it's different, the type of loss is different. But if you've experienced it, you get it in a way that others can't. They just can't. No matter how much compassion they have, no matter how much they try, they cannot understand it. And even a person who's not lost a spouse, talking to someone who has lost a spouse, it's not the same loss. It's a different loss. It is, you know. So
Well, it's like, you know, someone losing a child. I can't understand what that's like, because I haven't lost a child, but
right.
the commonality of someone that I love deeply, that moved my
Exactly.
soul, that, you know, lightened me up, that, you know, imbued my life with so many incredible gifts, whether that be a friend, a parent, your child, you know, a sibling. From that sense of loss, we all get it.
Right.
Versus somebody who has never had that experience. And inside of that, what I want to say about those people who have never had that experience, totally awkward. You don't know what to
Yes,
say.
you
You don't
don't.
know how to step in to support someone. I think what you can do is just say, one of those things is, how can I support you?
Mhm.
What can I do to make this burden a little lighter? Please don't offer your help or food or whatever all that is, because when the newness of that death is gone, and you're saying, oh, if you need anything, the person that's grieving can barely stand up. they're
Right.
they're like they're sort of, if I was to exaggerate, they're sort of swooning in their space, just trying to be able to stand and not fall down. So when you say, what can I do for you, or I'm here for you, reach out, it's like that person can't even process that.
Right.
And
And
if
they
they
sure don't know how to reach out
Yeah,
because
and if they do ask you for help, please show up. Like, if you're going to say it, mean it, because it's so hard for people that are left behind to ask for help, because everybody's wanting them to be normal. And
right.
and they're
And they're
trying to
not.
figure out how to be normal, but they can't be normal because nothing's normal, because the wound is so big.
Right. And they're forever changed. Just like you said earlier, they're forever changed. They won't ever be the same person ever again.
Right.
And I think it's hard for people, like you said, to accept that. And it is so hard to ask for help. You don't know what you need if you're the one grieving. You have no
Right.
idea. You can barely function. So, you know,
I had a friend, when my kids were little. She lost her twin brother. They were fraternal twins, and we had a mutual friend, and the mutual friend said to me, "Well, isn't she over it yet? I mean, gosh, it's been like 3 months." And I
uh,
remember thinking, um, first of all, there is really no timeline, even though people would like to put you on one. And understand that they're putting you on one because they're uncomfortable with
right.
the conversation of death. So someone's saying, "What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? You need to do this and do that, and da da da." All that shoulda, must, coulds, woulds. Just know that that's them being uncomfortable in their own skin around the conversation of death. So if anyone's trying to put you on a timeline, just remember your timeline is your timeline, and you're going to grieve how you're going to grieve, and you're going to get through it as you get through it. And there is no right or wrong. There just is the process of being.
Right. And
Yeah. So,
and it's gonna stay with you. It may not be as raw. The rawness may subside over time, depending on the person,
mhm.
but it's it still can come out of nowhere. Um, I lost my mother when I was 16 years old to a car accident. So it was very much a shock. Um, and I had a lot of family around and all of that. But I think for me, I just tried to get through it. I just tried to push through the day I had to move. I had to move my living situation and all of those things. So it was very hard. But I really think that my way of dealing with it was just compartmentalizing and moving on. I wasn't in charge of any kids. There was, I mean, I have sisters, younger sisters, but they were with their dad. And so it was just me pretty much pushing through. And, but the grief follows you along. There's not, I had my wedding. I didn't have my mom there. I've had countless Mother's Day, um, birthday, her birthday, things like that, holidays. That's the kind of stuff that gets to me sometimes. Mother's Day is really weird. It was also really strange when because she died when she was 38 years old. Well, when I turned 38 and 39, that was really strange. Like to outlive um what your parent, you know, achieved in their life. And she was about to start her own business. Like there are all these things going on. And, you start to reassess when you're the same age as them or past them or whatever. And it's a very odd feeling. My sister went through the same thing. Hard to describe, but so be sensitive. I would say to other people, be sensitive on those days. If you know somebody lost somebody, you know, people don't know when the wave is going to hit them. It just does sometimes.
Yeah, it's been 15 years, almost 15 years that he's been gone. And there are times of the year, like, holidays, Thanksgiving, and that's when he got sick. It was on Thanksgiving. Those days can be hard for me. They can be
Right.
really challenging. I think at one point I just accepted I would lose a couple weeks out of the holiday season where I would just literally try and hibernate because the pain of it was great. And it wasn't that I hadn't processed the grief or that I hadn't spoken about it or emoted it, but it was just the time of year and, things were triggering me.
Right.
I'm better now. Like, I think it was last year and 2020, 2019, like it didn't affect me as badly, but I would literally watch Hallmark movies from
Right.
Thanksgiving to Christmas just so I could get through it. Right.
Right.
Um, we are never the same when
Right.
someone dies. And I guess what I want to say to people who've lost someone is that, especially recently, is that you're never supposed to be the same.
Exactly.
This is one of those journeys that you get, that your spirit gets to handle, manage, um, come back from. And it's not to do and be the same way you were before. It's a pause of having the ability to say, wow, something really hit me deeply spiritually, that shook me to my core. And what are you going to do with it? What are you going to make of it? And how resilient are you going to be or not be? Like, there is no right way for you to show up other than, and I really invite you to feel and emote it in the time
Right.
that it comes out. Don't try and push it down. Don't try to ignore it. Don't run. Don't suppress it with, drinking or eating or shopping or, working out too much or having a lot of sex or, like, those are the things that we do to distract ourselves from really feeling things deeply. I think the greatest gift I got was to learn to sit in my grief. So literally, I would be cruising along and this wave of grief would hit me. I'd literally sit down in the spot that it was happening and I'd just sit and cry. If that was just a few minutes or if that was a half hour or if it was an hour, whatever I needed to do, I would just let the grief overpower me and I would cry. And then I, wipe my tears off and I take some deep breaths and then I stand up and I start walking forward. I think that for me was one of the greatest gifts. And I had a friend who lost her husband, and she called me one time and she said, "What do you do? How do?" And I told her that. I said, "Just sit, just be, and just emote it." And she wrote me a note not very long ago, and she said, "That one piece of advice saved me because every time I felt grief over him, I would literally just sit and cry, and I would just be still." And I think um, that's a great way to learn how to process and manage that. So it doesn't affect you, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Because if you never process your grief, it'll eat you up at some point.
Right. It comes out in other ways. And
Yeah.
it would have been nice as a teenager for somebody to have told me that, but they didn't know what to do. All they knew was, oh, well, you got to live somewhere and you got to go to school and you got to go through your day and you got to, move on basically. But nobody really talked to me about it being okay, to be sad or whatever.
My
And that
my
was
boy
hard. But I think,
my boys had taught me that when I first lost my husband, we were really a very tight family, and he was one of my best friends, and or I should say he was my best friend. And I would literally start crying. And both my kids, they were small, they were 10 and 8. They would come to wherever I was, and they put me in a group hug,
oh,
and they would just hold on to me, and they'd say, "It's okay, mommy. It's okay. It's okay." And I would cry until I couldn't cry anymore. And then as time went on, they're like, "Okay, she's crying again." She's crying again. Okay. And then they'd come in and look at me. "Mom, are you okay?" This is, many months later. Or, "Mom, are you okay?" "Yeah." "Okay, we're just going to let you cry." And so, yeah. That's how they
Right.
helped me cope. And then, oh yeah, that was the other thing. There's this young gentleman on Facebook who lost his wife. She's 28, he's 32, and they had 3 kids. And he's asking how am I going to do this? And I said it's good that your kids see you grieve, because that allows them to grieve and to be sad. And so the reason I told that story about my boys is because when they would be really sad, they could cry. Like they would just be doing whatever and they would miss their dad and they would just start weeping tears. And I'd say, do you need a hug? What do you need from me? And then they'd say, sometimes they need a hug. And then other times they'd say, no, I just need to cry. But you
Mhm.
modeling that for your kids when you've lost somebody dear it's a great example, because they know it's safe. They don't have to stuff their own feelings away because they don't want to burden you. They know, like, oh, mom did it. It's okay. I'm going to do it too. And so I think
Right.
that as a family, I think that's why we healed in the way that we did. So I think at the mark of year one, emotionally, we were a little bit more stable. But, I mean, it took a long, long time to fill that hole of him being gone.
Right. Right. That's really good that you all had awareness like that, that you could do that, that you felt free to do that, that you didn't have outside pressures to not express your feelings, or I don't know. Here in the South, people bring a casserole and that's what they do. And you have like 19 casseroles. And
Yeah, we had
so
some.
you tend to, well, either you don't eat anything or you eat too much. And once the casseroles are gone, there's that whole time period when everybody's around you, and then there's the time period after everybody leaves. And whenever everybody leaves and you're on your own again, it's a it's a strange period of time, which is really when you need your close friends and people to just sit with you, to invite you to coffee, to
Well, and
to just be with you.
it's interesting because the people that you thought were your really close friends are a lot of times they're super uncomfortable. And
That's
people that
true.
you didn't consider to be your friends showed up for you in a way that was delightfully compassionate.
Right.
Um, and so the people that I thought were my friends, um, they a handful, a few showed up, and then people I didn't think they were there. They were helping me with my kids. They were, anything that I needed. They were, and people I had, I had relationships with, but it wasn't like it was deeply, a deep knit friendship. Um, I had one friend who I played tennis with, and she didn't know that my husband was dying. And for whatever reason, I called her, and she had lost her dad, like maybe 2 years before. So she went and took the newspaper and read the newspaper to Bruce
Mm.
while he was dying. She would read the newspaper to him. Like, who would have thought? I just would have never thought of doing something
Right.
like that. But that she did that with her dad, and it really gave him a lot of comfort. And she did that for my husband. Yeah.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah. Um, I I guess the other thing too is ask for help. Like, it's not you don't have to do it by yourself. Uh, you'll know the people that you can ask for help with, especially if you have kids. It's really hard to function. It's really hard to get that schedule back together. They still need to have their lives, but you need time to do whatever you have to do. So if you have family or really good friends or a neighbor or whatever it is, just build a support network around you while you pull your life back together, because it's been shattered into thousands of pieces and you're really not expected to have everything together.
Right.
And
And
I'm
not
giving you permission to, like, know that, because there is no right or wrong. There's
no.
just their level of coping and responding and being resilient, and um to put on the facade like I got it all together, everything's fine. Like,
Yeah.
The only person you're hurting is yourself.
Right. Right. Let people help you
Yeah.
that can.
And
And
and if there's nobody, ask. Like you might have people in church, or
right.
you might belong to a yoga class, or your kids' play date groups, whatever that looks like for you. Don't feel like you have to go it alone. I
Right.
think that's um, an old way of thinking in the world. Like it's like having your own business on your own. You're supposed to do everything on your own. And in actuality, you need relationships. You need this energetic exchange from you to them and them to you.
Right. A sense of community within whatever, this thing that you're going through, this terrible thing that you're going through. And
Spirit-
some people are just waiting. They don't know what to do, so they may be waiting to reach out. They would love to reach out, but they don't know how. They don't know how.
They don't know how to ask it or say
They
it.
don't know how to ask because they feel so awkward. And but really, if you just extend yourself to them a little bit, they
And,
are
and those
likely to just take you in and
and those
envelop
people
you.
who you're waiting and you want to do something, and you're waiting for the person that lost their beloved to say, I need you to do this and do that. Sometimes they just can't even function. Like that part of their being is not working, it's not operating. So like, doing a load of laundry, or
Right.
going to grocery shopping to get the basic essentials, or picking their kids up from to go to school, or um I'm trying to not think of the casserole thing. You know, but
I
the
know.
outside of food, but like do things that have to happen, right?
Right.
Laundry has to get done. Beds need to be made. You know, um,
Right. Cleaning, just cleaning the
cleaning. Oh
bathroom,
yeah, people gave me.
things like that. And you can take initiative, and I bet the person's not going to refuse you if you just say, I'm going to take care of a few things around here,
I
and
had two friends. One was a friend. One was somebody in the community. They both gave me 3 months of house cleaning. So I had
oh,
someone
that was
coming in
nice.
every 2 weeks. And boy, that was just like such a godsend, because things got out of control. I had two
Right.
boys um, who wanted to cook, who wanted to do dishes. But yeah, Mary and her friend sent people over, and it was like awesome. Just stuff like that. Services after you buy, get gas, whatever things,
Right.
just to hold the structure together so they
Right.
don't have to think about it. And especially for people who might not have been the leader in their family in that way. Like if he or she was the leader in domestic god and goddesses of their homes, the person left behind really needs a hand.
Yeah, they really do. So don't be afraid to reach out and offer and do. Sometimes you just do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and it's okay for the person grieving. I'm glad that Christine, you said to sit in the grief, let it wash over you, let it come out, let those emotions come out, because that's what needs to happen. They need to come out, or else they'll stay in and come out in other ways. And so you have permission to do that. And the other people who want to help, you have permission to help and be
right.
there
Well,
for your
and I think
friend.
a lot of times everybody's trying to be considerate and wait for somebody to lead, or
Yes.
and the person that's, most of the time I should say, the person that is the bereaved, they can't. I remember, like, I can barely remember what it was like after he died. I remember things being very muddled and confused and garbled because I was so grief stricken. And I really don't think I had any kind of normalcy until it was like 3 or 4 years later. Like I had
Right.
gone through all of the seasons and situations that had come up, and I was still raising two young boys, so I had to make sure that their daily lives were taken care of. But for me, Christine, standing on my own 2 feet upright without swaying, it probably took me 4 or 5 years.
And I think about another thing that comes with losing someone. is, especially if it's a spouse, is the business of death. The There's the funeral, there's the obituary, there's the burial, there's choosing the things at a funeral home or a cremation or whatever you're doing, or a memorial service. There's the service itself. There's all these, you have to plan this event while you're going through this horrible, horrible time. And then there's the will or lack of will. There's the estate and court and you know, all of this other business, that goes along with death that has to be dealt with eventually, and some of it immediately, and some of, and healthcare costs, and, if there was a health problem, and all of these things come together, and I think it feels to people like it's going to swallow them because
Well,
it's
it
so
is because
much.
there's this push from
Right.
society that says, okay, he or she died. Okay, well, and
Right.
you have this and this and this and this and this. And here's what I say to that. You get to manage and create the schedule that you need for you to survive inside of it.
Right.
Like for me, for him dying, like I just blew off all societal expectations of me and just did what I needed to do to take care of my kids and myself. And anything other than that, outside of that conversation, if it wasn't supporting me, if it wasn't growing me, if it wasn't sustaining me, it didn't get much of my attention because I could barely function throughout my day.
Right.
I mean, with him dying, it was such a shock because he was the rock of our family. And, I'm highly capable in all those things. Yet, I felt like I was underwater and all I was hearing was, like in the Charlie Brown cartoons when the adults speaking,
The teacher. Mhm.
like that's all I can remember. And I would look and, huh, you know,
Yeah.
but I just tried and kept myself going. And then when we had a service, my kids and I wanted to wear white because that was the ascension to spirit. And my cousin said, oh, you can't wear white. You have to wear black. Like, that's not traditional. And so I told my kids, well, Auntie Tracy said, we have to wear black. Well, in the old days, you wore black because they became a part of the earth. That was, that's what death represented, was that kind of condensed sort of dark feeling that you're getting left behind and you have to deal with that. So that's how we said. And my youngest son was 8 at the time, and he's like, well, mommy, Auntie Tracy can wear black, but I'm wearing white because daddy's with God. And so the three of us wore white, and I told everybody at the service why we were wearing white. And that was really a breakthrough moment, when your youngest child understands.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's beautiful. I never had really thought about that.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
that
we
way.
were white because he was with
Nice.
God and he
Right.
had ascended. So
Makes sense. Makes total sense to me.
yeah.
Now that you say that.
Yeah. And yeah, we were sad, but the one thing that we knew about my husband was literally, I think he had decided, I'm done with this earthly life because he had accomplished everything he wanted. He had the experiences he wanted. And, he seemed, in the last part of his life, he seemed sort of bored. Like there was nothing that was really exciting him. And then he came down with getting sick. We were building a house, and he had finished the house. And so it was like, okay, I'm done it now. So we miss him still.
Of course. Of course. I'm sure he's watching over all of you, smiling.
Yeah.
And watching as all of the kids have grown and everything.
Yeah,
So,
there's definitely, I would definitely feel like I have a guardian angel at times.
yes, me too, for sure.
So, yeah, if you have any questions or you need any support around this, please don't hesitate to let us know. If there's anything I or Heather can do to support you in your journey, we'd love to hear from you.
Definitely. You can tag us on Instagram at Intuition First or email us intuitionfirst@gmail.com. and we would love to support you however we can. And if this topic has resonated and you know someone else who might benefit from hearing it, having a little support, please share it. And
Yeah, and click the subscribe button below or the follow on the podcast. We'd love to have you be a part of our community.
absolutely.
Thanks for dropping by.
Thanks for being with us today. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Intuition First. We're so glad that you chose to spend your time with us today. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them and tag us on Instagram at Intuition First. We'd love to hear what you enjoyed and what you'd like to hear more of. And until the next time, keep listening to your intuition. It really knows what it's talking about.